What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Pan Outdoors. Today we're going to be working on my Talaria XXX. I'm going to be swapping out the street tires on the Supermoto wheel set with a set of Shinko SR241s. The main reason why I decided to switch out to this newer tire set is simply because it's starting to get a little colder in my area, so we'll likely be doing less street riding and more trail riding. And for obvious reasons, the factory street tires don't do too well in off-road conditions or even in the grass, and these knobbier Shinkos are definitely going to be a lot better for the purpose that I'm looking for. They are pretty knobby, but they are not overly aggressive like traditional motocross tires, like these 8-tracks on my YZ or these tires on my KLX. And these type of tires typically ride a lot rougher on the street, not to mention they are not street legal. And I am planning on registering my Talaria for street use, and these Shinkos are actually DOT rated, which means they are street legal. The tire sizes that I decided to go with is 17 by 2.75 inch for the front and 17 by 3 inch for the back. I'm going to start by putting this Talaria on a stand, and then we're going to start with the front wheel. And as far as tools that I'm using for this project, I'm just using a Bike Master tire stand that I got from Amazon, a set of tire spoons, a bead buddy, some masking tape to put on the tip of the tire spoons to minimize the chances of scratching the wheels, and some soapy water. If you are interested in checking out any of these items or where to get these Shinkos, I will have everything linked in the description below. This tire spoon kit by Nico did come with some rim edge protectors, but I haven't had too much good luck with these when I use this to swap out the tires on my YZ. I'm going to start by letting out all the air from the tire, and then we're going to break the bead. I'm going to take out the valve stem core, make this job a little quicker. Gonna break the bead. Now that we've got one sidewall fully off of the wheel, I'm going to take out the inner tube. But before we can do that, we have to loosen this nut on the valve stem. That's honestly the fastest that I've been able to take off a tire from a wheel before. These Shinkos don't appear to be directional, so you should be good to just put it on. Now that we got the bottom sidewall in, I'm going to reinsert the tire tube. Before we do that, I'm going to reinstall the valve stem core and partially inflate this. It usually just makes it a little easier to position it in the wheel. And that's probably pretty good. Just going to reinstall the nut on the valve stem to keep the inner tube from rotating. This might be a little overkill for this type of tire, but I'm just gonna install the bead buddy here, so it doesn't pop back out while you're doing the other side. Just makes tire install a lot easier. But honestly, these wheels and tires are super easy. That's it. Next thing we're going to do is fully secure the valve stem and inflate this thing to 32 psi. And there's no need to tighten this much. Keep in mind, this valve stem is on a rubber tube. Moment of truth, hopefully I didn't pinch a tire tube. And that is how you swap out a tire on a Talaria wheel without scratching the wheels. And just to give you guys an idea of the overall size difference, the Shinkos are noticeably wider and stand a lot taller than the street tires, so naturally the bike seat height will raise about an inch. I just noticed that my brake pads are starting to get a little bit on the lower side. I might need to swap that out soon. And as far as torquing down the cap for the axle, there's really no need to tighten it too much since the axle is mainly held on by the 4 pinch bolts on the fork. And we are all done with the front wheel. Now let's go take off the rear. Just need a 17mm socket. It's pretty much the same deal. We're going to start by deflating the tire, taking out the valve stem core. Should be able to break the bead by hand. Just surprising. You might not even need a tire changing stand for this. Just need a little bit of patience. Before we continue, I am going to swap out the tape that I had on the tire spoons, since these ones wore down on the last tire change. This one does feel noticeably stiffer than the front tire. Still not a big deal though. This is a lot easier than dirt bike tires. And the next thing is we're going to take this 12mm and take off the lock nut on the valve stem. The rear tire is noticeably stiffer than the front, so it's a little tougher to remove, but can still do it without using a tire changing stand. Now that we got that out of the way, we're going to reinstall the inner tube. First I'm going to put the valve stem core back in. We want the inner tube to stay relatively inflated, just so it keeps its form, keeps it from pinching when you're reinstalling everything. It's probably one of the most frustrating parts is feeding the valve stem back through the hole in the wheel. But once you get it through, just throw on the nut on there just to keep it in place. If you happen to have like Gorilla Tape at home, use that instead. It definitely holds up to water much better. Now that we got everything seated, I'm gonna tighten that 12mm nut on the valve stem all the way. Just gonna fill this one to 32 psi like I did the front one. And that is it. Let's go throw this thing back on the bike. Just like the front tire, there is a difference in overall diameter for the rear. The Shinko sits about an inch overall diameter difference versus the factory street tire. So hopefully we don't have any clearance issues with the rear fender. Probably one of the more challenging things with these Surons and Talarias is putting the rear wheel back on and aligning the rear brake caliper. They just require a little bit more patience when you're putting the rear wheel back on. Just make sure that your brake rotor is perfectly in between the pads with no drag, chain with minimal slack. Then you can torque down the 17mm axle nut. That is it. We are ready to ride this thing. Surprisingly, there are no clearance issues with the rear fender. There's plenty of clearance. I can stick my finger all the way around in between the tire and the fender. There is a noticeable difference as far as overall height though, which I'm actually pretty happy about. Not too big of a change. I can still get my heels down. Just to give you some perspective, I'm 5'8". It probably lifted the seat height just about an inch.
Bro, what the fuck? You have an airstrip at your house?
Yeah, right?
What the fuck is this?
So basically, when my dad brings the car, we got like a little track.
That's crazy. Alright, I'm gonna do a top speed run real quick.
Go for it.
You want a drag race?
Drag race?
Yeah. This is a little bit insane. My boss has a freaking lake at his property, 26-acre lake, and some trails, and an airstrip. Seems like we found a new playground. This place is freaking beautiful. Let's go check out this new house that they're getting built. Is that supposed to be like a 5-door garage?
Yeah.
That's fucking baller.
He's got two.
Man, someday I'm gonna have a house like that. Look at all this freaking lawn, man. So much space to practice. You ride your Talaria there?
Yeah, you gotta be careful though.
Alright, fuck it, I'm gonna ride this thing. Oh, easy. These new tires are freaking awesome. This should have been my first modification. Today has not really changed, 52.7 miles an hour. So I'm still about the same. One thing I did notice is it has lost a lot of low-end torque. So initial throttle, front wheel doesn't want to pop up as easily as it did before. So I might be swapping out to the 48 tooth sprocket again. And I might try a O-ringless chain to see if that reduces any sort of drag, so I'm able to put down the power a lot easier. All right guys, well if you enjoyed today's video or found it helpful in any way, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you like this kind of content, want to keep up with some of my projects, some of my rides, consider subscribing to this channel. But this is going to be it for today. Thank you for watching.